207, we often have our tech guru Rich Brooks come in and talk about some of the latest and greatest in the technology world. This time he brought his father along, Dr. Bob Brooks. Thank you guys so much for coming in.
It's a pleasure.
We're talking about keeping children resilient in a digital world. What does that mean?
Well, first, resilience for me is the capacity to bounce back from adversity. It doesn't mean you're not going to face adversity. We all are, but when you do, you have ways of coping with it. You're much more optimistic, you're much more hopeful, you have good problem-solving skills, you think before you act. And one of the most important components, actually, of resilience, a couple of them, is your relationships with other people are very good. There are at least some key people in your life. And what we have found, interestingly enough, resilient children and adults, what helps them to be resilient is when they feel they're making a positive difference in the life of others, whether it's a 6-year-old helping someone or a 50-year-old helping someone. So it's what I call in my books a resilient mindset. Now, it gets more complicated in the digital world because there's some studies that show that kids are spending so much time on smartphones or iPads or whatever, that one recent study found with 8 to 11-year-olds that they're not sleeping as much, they're not getting as much exercise, and the communication with others is all through the digital world. And at this point, we're not even certain what the overall impact is going to be, but this study showed that some of their thinking skills and other kinds of skills are not advancing as much as children who do not spend as much time. But it's a very complex thing to study.
So essentially, is that screen time isolating the child a little bit more?
You know, people have said in some ways we're more connected than ever before, but less connected than ever before. And if your entire time is on the screen, it interferes with the capacity to be more empathic, to really read other people, to really resolve issues. Now, that doesn't mean screen time is bad. They found actually with these 8 to 11-year-olds, screen time under 2 hours a day, which seemed a lot to me, did not seem to have much of an impact. But what they found is a lot of these kids were on the screen 4 hours a day. And once you're on that much, you're not getting exercise, which is a big issue at any time, because exercise actually helps the brain develop. And you know, obesity is a major issue in our country.
Rich, this kind of goes against everything we ever talk about with you. You're our tech guy, and you know, we always have our phones, we're ready to go. What does this mean for you?
Well, I think what my dad said is pretty much on point. It's about finding balance. And I struggled with this with my own kids, and it's a much different world. Like when I was growing up and I got home comment slips, my dad would just take away the television, and that was it. It was easy.
And he got a lot of them.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Good to know.
Right. But with my kids, it's like if I get upset with their behavior or performance, and I'm like, I'm taking away your phone, they're like, well, then we can't do our homework. So everything's connected. So as a parent, it just becomes a lot more challenging these days. You do need to find other things for them to do besides just staring at their screen. But I'm also cognizant that if I were to take away their screen time, very often that will disconnect them from their friends as well. So that becomes a challenge right there. It's like, am I going to take away this thing that actually helps them connect with their friends? Probably not. I'm going to find some other way to kind of get them to do what they need to do, whether it's pick up the house or get exercise or listen to what I'm saying.
Dr. Brooks, you talk about having a charismatic adult in a child's life. What does that mean?
Well, it's a very interesting concept. When they did research about what helps kids to bounce back from adversity, the #1 finding, Amanda, was there was at least one person in their life who truly believed in them, encouraged them, stood by them. And a psychologist, the late Julius Siegel, called that person a charismatic adult. And his definition was, it's a person from whom a child or adolescent gathers strength. By the way, we need such people in our lives, even as adults. And to think of it in that way, something Rich said is, which is very important to me, is as parents and as grandparents, we have to serve as models. Because interviewing a number of kids, I found, well, my father or mother says I shouldn't be on the cell phone, but we're somewhere and they're on the cell phone. Or one boy was at a soccer game and he scored a goal and his father was on the cell phone. He was only a 7-year-old and he was like devastated. So we also have to look at how we model that. If we want kids to exercise, do they see us exercising? If we want kids to be more compassionate and caring, do they see us being more compassionate and caring? So it's not just, we have to really live what we're preaching to kids, which is a very important and sometimes very difficult thing to do.
Certainly a tough thing to do. Guys, thank you so much for coming in and talking about this with us. And you can find more information about Dr. Brooks on the 207 section of our website. And we will be right back.